Hey, you guys, I'm back. This is Save Time with Tori. I'm in the parking lot as usual. Um, it's a nice day out here. I decided to park and do a video really fast, so you guys got lucky. But today's topic, it's gonna be one of those. Basically, I mean, some of y'all might already, it might be too late for some of y'all, but for those who haven't made the mistake yet, then this is videos for you. I'm gonna go ahead and jump right on into it. The video is gonna be called I don't have an exact title. I might switch the words around, but basically getting pregnant by a man who doesn't want kids. And I'm pretty sure you've been in a situation or seen a situation, got a person you know, or maybe it's your parents, or everybody knows at least one person that has, saw a person that tried to, lock down their significant other with children. And this can go both ways. This can go for, male, female, whatever, whatever. But majority of this is really for female. Let me scan over these notes really fast. Yeah, honestly, a majority of these are pretty much can go both ways, except maybe like one or two. But yeah, this is a dual video. But anyway, we're gonna talk about getting pregnant by a man who don't want no kids. Number one, I don't know if this is first and foremost, but it's definitely at the top. But he's not gonna provide. Like, he already told you he didn't want no kids. So if you run up here and spread your legs like an eagle, and 9 months later you done create another human being, like, you can't expect him to pay for your child. Now, let me clear this up before things get all twisted and y'all start coming for me, because I want all the smoke. But anyway, the point is that he should, like, I don't really care if he wants the baby or not. If the baby is conceived some type of way, he needs to pay up. Like, that's just some bum behavior, that's dusty behavior, that's just ratchet behavior. But if he done already told you he don't want no damn kids, and if you still proceed to go on with the try to get pregnant or whatever, or if you're already pregnant by accident, and then he started talking about abortions and things like that, honestly, he really don't have the say to about whether or not you keep your child. But you got to understand, like, if you decide not to go through with this, you already know what type of games he's going to be playing. Like, don't automatically think, oh, it's his child. When the baby get here, he's gonna love him. That's not guaranteed, because I done seen a whole bunch of situations where, you know what I'm saying, the guy, the baby come and he's not attached to the baby like you thought he was. You thought he was gonna come back because of the baby, and then he don't. And so now you sitting there with the stuck face. So he's not gonna provide. You're gonna, oh, do you have some money for some diapers? He gonna leave you on red. He gonna block you. He gonna make up an excuse to why he ain't got no money. It's just gonna be some type of drama involved with that. So if you ain't got your shit together, if you ain't, if you on welfare, or if you at a job that's not really paying you for real, then bringing another child into this world is probably not the best idea. Because I don't promote abortion. Let me just throw that out there before y'all get it twisted. But I'm just saying, like, don't bring no baby into this world thinking this man is going to step up, because it's not 100% guaranteed. So he's not going to provide, which means you're stuck with the expenses. You're buying the diapers, you're buying the formula, you're paying for little Jimmy's karate class, you're what I'm saying, you're buying them McDonald's cheeseburgers every Friday night, and this motherfucker over here done took his check and ran. So like I said, unless you got your shit together and you can afford this pregnancy, then go ahead. But just don't do it in the first place. Then you don't have to worry about X, Y, and Z. And number two, which I think number two is actually number one. But anyway, he's not gonna spend time with the kid. Like, he already told you what time it was. So if you still proceed to do what you want to do, then little Timmy is asking where his father is at, and he's watching shows on TV, or she's watching shows where father and daughter and things like that. And then Then it's gonna start asking you questions like, "Where's my daddy? Where? Why isn't he here? Can he take me to this and this?" And then you gotta explain to these kids, well, I mean, most people lie, to be honest. Like, they'll cover up for the other parent. They won't really tell them that they're, ratchet until they get older. But as they're growing up, what I'm saying, they're traumatized. Like, they're wondering, like, I'm seeing all these families on TVs. You have the mom, you have the dad, and everybody's Family Matters and the Fresh Prince. Everybody. All these shows and sitcoms are featuring people with moms and dads and husbands and wives. And so if this motherfucker over here ain't spending time with them, the holidays are coming, they're not bringing gifts, they're not spending time, they're not taking them to the park, they're not trying to get to know them in really any way, shape, or form. Or you gotta like stress them out to get them to do it. You gotta like pretty much drop the kids off on their doorstep type stuff in order for them to watch their kids. Like, ain't nobody doing all that. Please, anybody doing that, just stop. It looks bad, it's ratchet, and that ain't what time we on. If you gotta do all that, then just keep the kids at home. If you gotta force them and coerce them and basically beg them to spend time with their kids, then that's not really quality time. There's some bullshit time, and you don't really want your kids to be absorbing that type of negative energy to where he feels like you know he's doing something just because they're at his house, but he's not really bonding like he's supposed to. So, in the end, kids are gonna notice that and pick up on that, and then you're gonna, like I said, you're gonna traumatize your kids, and they're gonna grow up all fucked up in the head, and just unhealed, and like, just don't do it. He's not gonna be an active father. So, like, I mean, there are some situations, like I said, I ain't gonna take nothing away from nobody. There are some situations where men have said, "I don't want no kids," woo, 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 woo. But then, when the baby get here, they fall in love with the baby and they step up to the plate and things like that. So, but you can't bank on that. Like, that's not 100% of the time. I don't know what percent that is, but you can't roll the dice like that. Oh, hopefully, he told me he loved me last week. He still gotta have some type of love for me when he see his child. I know he's not that, gutter. Shit, you be surprised. But anyway, he's just not gonna bond with him the way you're expecting in your head, because he's over there with these other chicks. You know what I'm saying? Like, if y'all not together, now if y'all is together, then whatever, whatever. But if you're not together and you're trying to trap a man and shit like that, or maybe you ain't gotta be trapping, you just happen to get pregnant while y'all was doing the sneaky link shit, and I got a video on that too. Go check it out. But anyway, that sneaky link shit ain't worth a damn, especially in situations like this, to where you're sneaking, but then some, oops, I did it again, and then you get pregnant, and then, but you're not really girlfriend anymore. You just sneaking, and now you got to tell the world you got a baby by a man that everybody assumed that you weren't even with anymore. But any motherfucking way, he's taking his time, resources, and money to another household if y'all not together. So you're trying to force him to take care of kids, but he done already moved on, type stuff. So that's gonna be even harder to do, because like I said, y'all not together anymore. But if you are together and you get pregnant, number three, he's gonna resent you. So, in all intent and purposes, if you guys are still together, and he already told you what time it was. He said he ain't no family man, X, Y, and Z. He wants to live the single bachelor life, or maybe just a couple's life minus kids. And then you slip up, he's gonna resent you. Like, he's gonna get pissed off. He's gonna start treating you different. He's gonna, like, you're gonna notice the shift in his energy. So, like, your happy home that you thought you had, and you thought you was expanding with the baby, a happy home, now it's shot to pieces. So now he's pissed off at you. He's walking around the house mad and angry, and just giving you the cold shoulder type stuff. And like, who wants to be in a relationship like that? If he was in love before, now he's not. He's most definitely not now, because you know he feels like you trapped him. He feels like you wanted him so bad to the point to where you got pregnant on purpose. It could have been an accident. A lot of times, shit happens, but then there are other times where women think that a baby's gonna change a man, a baby's gonna make him grow up, a baby's gonna make him appreciate her more. Like, you can't depend on that situation, because that's not everybody's story. Each person has a mind of their own, and if you're dealing with a dog ass motherfucker, then like, the baby's not gonna do anything but make him even madder and ratchet. That's not a word, but any motherfucking way. And then he feels like you challenge his authority. Like, he told you, and then you went behind his back. You might have did not. That's why I put the air quotes on there. You went behind his back and got pregnant, and now he's thinking you trying to rough him up. You're trying to, like I said, challenge his authority. Put on your boxing gloves and go tit for tat, and saying that's masculine. As you've seen in some of my other videos, the masculine shit don't get you nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. Men, straight men, are attracted to women, feminine women that look good, that's not giving off, who's better than who, and competition. Like, a little bit of competition is fun. It's like, but when it comes to serious matters like this, I'm talking about like video games and things, sports, stuff like that. But like, when you're challenging a man's authority, like his rule over the household and things like that, that shit is going left like faster than I can say any, mini, miny, mo. So, like, don't think that's just going to create some type of unicorn and rainbow effect by you carrying his baby and showing him ultrasound papers and things like that. He doesn't care, because he already told you before you got pregnant he wasn't into that. So you trying to drag him to the doctor's appointment, try to make him, be interested in this pregnancy. Good luck. And then this is kind of towards the top too. No babysitter. No, your camera didn't freeze. You know exactly what I'm talking about. No motherfucking babysitter. Every mom out there, at least 80-90% of mom can attest to this. Unless you got a big family, unless you got a supporting support system, unless you got, bukus of dollars for nannies and things like that, the average American woman ain't got that. So basically, when you're pushing out these kids and you have this newborn baby, but you still got to go back to work, hopefully you got some maternity leave. And if you don't, it's even worse. They want you back at work in 6 weeks and your newborn baby's still here waiting on your titty. But anyway, the point is that who gonna watch these kids? You might already have some kids. You might have a mom or a grandma, aunt or something watching your kids, but now they got 2, 3, 4 kids to watch. That one plus, however many other you got. Ain't nobody trying to be, taking care of all them kids at once like that. Like, they might do it sometimes to be nice because they're family and things like that. But like, you can't dump off no 4 or 5 kids on no one person and every day. Like, that's too much, especially for an older woman that done already pushed out her kids. She done already, past menopause and things like that. Ain't nobody trying to be dealing with no kids 5-6 days a week. Like I said, sometimes, bounce them on your knee a little bit, give them a candy cane sucker, and then in a couple of hours you gotta go type shit. So if you ain't got no babysitter or no strong support system, then you making a big mistake. You just can't work. You gotta time it to where you gotta pick up the baby here and drop them off at this time and things like that. It's a lot. Having kids is a lot of work. Most men don't appreciate the fact that mom sacrificed so much for these kids, and then you gotta make time for to feed them and clothe them, and you're changing diapers, and it's a lot. And then this motherfucker over here decided he didn't want to be a father, and so now you got to play 2 roles. Like, anyway, and then it's going to be hard for you to find another person, because like I said, if you have no babysitter, then it's going to be hard for you to date. You can't just throw that shit off on your mom every day. Like, ain't nobody about that life. So you're trying to date and find a replacement guy, because this motherfucker here is obviously on some other shit. So, and it's cutting into your freedom pretty much. Like I said, if you're going to be with the baby daddy, then this is all fine and dandy if he wants to be a part of the child's life. But if he doesn't want to be a part of the child's life, then common sense will tell you to leave him. Like, if he abandons you and the baby, then why would you want to continue to be with him or sleep with him and be a sneaky link situationship? Like, if you don't want nothing to do with my kids, then you don't want nothing to do with me either. You're not gonna come up here and get free pussy and then, leave your kids sit here on the couch. Like, no, that ain't what we doing. So you trying to move on and find somebody else is going to be a little bit, hard to do when you have less freedom going on. And plus, there's more baggage. I hate using the word baggage when it comes to kids, but I'm still looking for a replacement word. They're like, the words that I can think of in my head are kind of derogatory. But, if I say that, just don't take offense to that. I'm learning just like you guys. But anyway, now you have, more, I'm still looking for the word to bring into the next relationship. And, it's just more trouble than you need. To save your build your family with a man who wants a family. Don't start one with somebody you're unsure about or they're already blatantly told you that they don't want one. And it just devalues yourself. Like, people are looking at you like, you got, you know, you're having babies by these men who aren't around and that's not, fulfilling their duties and stuff like that. So, other men are looking at you like, you got this newborn baby. Well, where's the father? You might think you're doing him a favor by telling him, like, oh, we fighting, we ain't together no more. You might think that's, reassuring him that, he don't have to worry about X, Y, and Z, which it might a little bit, but in the back of his head, he's thinking, what type of man would abandon their kid? So you messing around with fuck boys, you know what I'm saying? Like, you picking wrong. Who the fuck are you sleeping with? And so now, you know what I'm saying? Now they're judging you by the people that you chose to be, your baby daddy. And, now they questioning whether or not they want you, because obviously, they're thinking now that you don't have a brain. You might do, but, this is like, obviously someone outside looking in. They don't really know the whole story. They're just judging you by what they see. They just see you sitting there with a baby daddy that's absent. And so now they're like, why did he leave? He must have left for a reason. Like, or maybe he was just dusty in general and she's picking all these crazy men. Like, I don't want no woman that don't know how to, value herself and pick a man that's gonna, be a stand-up guy. So it just kind of rolls over into other, areas of your life. So, like, you got to be careful out here. But, and then, actually, this is at the top. What I'm about to say is at the top. And then the second one's going to be he's not going to spend time because, the time is in that right there is more important when it comes to the kids. They're the way they grow up, the way they think, the way they, their emotions develop and things like that. That's number one. But this right here is number two. Babies don't create love and emotions. Like, you thinking because you pop out this baby, he's gonna fall in love with you because you're a mom and you're nurturing the baby. You're nurturing the baby. You're not necessarily nurturing him. And plus, he already said he didn't want no kids. So he wants all the nurturing to be on him and not so much the baby because he didn't want the baby in the first place. So you're thinking you're doing this big thing by, showing him how good of a mother you are when he doesn't really give a damn because he already told you he didn't want no kids. So you can stop stunting like right the fuck now, to be honest with you. Normally, a man who said they don't want like kids, they're typically players. They're typically, outside and they're selfish creatures. They want the attention and everything to be on them. They don't really want to share the spotlight with anybody else because they know once a woman have kids, they got to spread themselves thin to to the relationship, to the kids, to the job, to I guess they don't want to share or whatever. Man, y'all can drop some shit in the comments if y'all can give me the answer on to why some men decide to do that. But anyway, it's not gonna make him love you even more. It's just either he love you or he don't, period. It doesn't really matter. And he don't love you if he leave his kids. So, like, If he just come up, for a booty call at 2 a.m. and pretend like he's coming to see the kids, and all he does is, have sex with you and leave, and he barely even says hi to the kids, then obviously he's only keeping you around because, hold up, it's getting dark as hell in here. I don't know if my camera about to die or the sun just in a weird. Well, I can't charge it because I got this thing in here that controls my microphone. I don't think my phone is about to die. I think the sun is just like doing too much. I can try to hold on, y'all. I might turn the car around, and can y'all see? Well, y'all can't answer. This ain't live. Anyway, I'm just gonna keep talking. But the motherfucking point is, like, don't think he's gonna fall in love with you just because you're a mom and you pushed out his baby, you sacrifice your body, you're staying up, feeding his baby every 3 hours. You think you're gonna get some type of badge for, taking care of this baby that he didn't even want. So, like, don't, like, jump through hoops to try to prove yourself worthy. They know your worth. They don't care. So, don't waste I've said it in a couple other videos, don't waste your wombs, your youth, your beauty on a man that doesn't want to start a family with you. Save that, because, once you start having kids, your body gets out of shape, and, it's hard to lose that weight. You might get stretch marks, it's just postpartum depression, things like that. So, you're going through all of this. You done lost your beauty, your youth, chasing this man, trying to make him be an active father. Just save all that for somebody else. Don't run yourself into the ground for a man who don't appreciate it. And then when it comes time to date again, now your titty sagging from, all this breastfeeding, and, your coochie been stretched from east to south to north to west, pushing out a baby, and, like, it's just too much sacrifice for a man who don't, appreciate it. So, like, don't invest too much into that situation. The minute you realize that he don't want kids is the minute you need to start planning your exit. And if you somehow slipped up during a sneaky link situation, I mean, that's on you to decide whether or not you're gonna continue on with the situation. I'm not gonna sway nobody either way, because, in my opinion, there are certain circumstances to where I feel like abortion is necessary, but it's not this one. Not this one. I'm gonna just tell you that now. But anyway, but you can do what you want to do, because, I know everybody don't know your story, so you can't, like, what I'm saying, judge certain things. But, I'm a believer of God, so, killing kids, it's not, it'll never sit well with me. But like I said, there are extenuating circumstances. I can name one for y'all. If y'all rape, what I'm saying, like, if you've been, maybe I need to edit that out of here, I don't know. But anyway, if that has happened, then, even then, God has a purpose for everybody. So it's kind of like, depending on your financial situation, and if you got a support system, I would go ahead and, make it do what it do. But I know some people are like PTSD, and, some people just, I get it. But this situation right here in this video, nah, like, you knew better. You should, like, he tricked you, and now, you just gotta, charge it to the game, pretty much. And then the last one is basically, you're gonna get frustrated, and it's gonna lead to depression. Frustrated as in you're looking for babysitters. You're trying to force this man to be a father. He's acting weird. He probably moved on and got another chick. He don't love you no more because you done tricked him, and things like that. And now he's got this responsibility that he doesn't want. Like, it's just gonna mess with your, psyche and your mind and your, what I'm saying. You're just gonna spiral down this hole of depression, because, everything's going wrong. You're 8 months pregnant. This man ain't coming to no doctor's appointments. He's ghost. You see him on Facebook flaunting this new girl. Meanwhile, you're at the prenatal visits by yourself, and then when the baby get here, you're most definitely, tired and sleepy, and, like, you got this extra, you know human being to take care of on your hands, and he's just out here living his best life. Like, that's not fair. So, you don't want to send yourself into a downward spiral of depression. So if he said what he said, take his word for it. If they show you who they are, believe them. Trust and believe. Like I said, there are certain circumstances where I've seen people change their lives around, but that was God's doing. Majority of the time, they say what they mean and they mean what they say. So please don't get caught up in the bullshit. But anyway, that's my video for today. That was a little bit hard topic. And, everybody probably ain't gonna like my opinion. It's really not an opinion, it's facts. You know what I'm saying? Everything I say has been tried, true, and tested. And it's like, unless I tell you there's a, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Unless I tell you there's some extenuating circumstances, then it's pretty much, it is what it is. I don't come over here talking crazy. I don't give my opinion. It's facts. This is life, and I have no control over any of this shit. If I did, we all be happy and living la vida loca. But obviously, we have some ratchet people out here in the world that have no soul, that have no morals, that are more on the selfish side. So basically, if they tell you they don't want no kids, do not sleep with them, or at least unprotected. Like, let's just go there. If you just want to keep doing it for whatever reason, and you still need some time to heal, whatever, just make sure you wrap it up. But anyway, this is Save Time with Tori, and I do what? I save you time from the bullshit. Okay, bye.